Manchester United are the champions of Europe again.
Hello and welcome back to the One United podcast. I'm joined as ever by Henry. Henry, how you doing?
Absolutely shitting myself. You?
Yeah, a little bit the same. We can't admit that we're so, especially in the midst of our local resident Liverpool fan. We're joined by Tommy. You probably know him as Tommy Lister off Twitter. So, Tommy, how you doing?
Yeah, I'm good, mate. I'm good. Just looking forward to the game, really.
Yeah, definitely. Should be a good one. Now, obviously, with probably the biggest game of both team seasons so far coming up on Sunday, we just wanted to talk to Tommy about his thoughts looking ahead to the game, bit of a preview, and just sort of see what's happening. So, first things first, we've got to start. Obviously, we're United fans. We've got to make the most of this. United are top of the league, Tommy, and obviously you're a pretty big Twitter presence at this point.
No.
I personally have noticed how insufferable United fans have been in the last couple of days. But from a Liverpool point of view, how frustrating is it watching United fans be United fans right now?
It's just kind of, it comes with it, really. It's more like your mates or people that when you'll have a specific friend or something that supports United, and then it's them that get to you. I don't care about. I mean, to be honest, it's only what. I don't want to get, unless you want to get too much into the match now. Like, I don't think there's a lot to sort of have a meltdown over. I know you're top of the league and all that, but it doesn't faze me enough yet. Could change quickly, obviously.
Yeah, it's a bizarre season, isn't it? It doesn't feel like we should be top, Henry. But we want to talk about sort of the coverage of the two clubs in the media, because obviously from a United standpoint, a lot of fans over the last two seasons at least have been saying that Liverpool are the media's sweethearts, but now we're getting a lot of coverage now about United and their VAR decisions, and we're sort of being defended a bit more. So I'll come to you first, Henry. How do you think the media coverage of the two teams is changing, and do you think there's still a bias towards one side?
Obviously, from a United fan's point of view, yeah, I'm going to say there's a bias towards one side, because all I see is hate towards United from everyone. ESPN, I'd say, are the worst, because they just, no matter what we do, we could be 20 points clear at the top of the table. I'm not saying it would happen, but we could be, and they'd be going, "Oh, you're only there because of VAR," or you don't deserve to be there, or whatever. So yeah, there's a lot of criticism of our club, but I love it because it shows that we're relevant again, and we haven't been relevant for a very, very long time. And if people are getting rattled, for example, if Klopp's getting rattled, which he is a little bit about penalties and whatever, we're living in his head, and that hasn't happened for so long. So as I've said before, I'm just enjoying the ride, and I'm enjoying being insufferable, I guess, to a degree.
Well, I'll come to you, Tommy. Obviously, Henry, I would ask you about sort of the media coverage in a sec, but Henry's just reminded me of something there. Now, there's a lot being said about Jurgen Klopp in the media at the minute. After every loss, there seems to be some outlandish excuse, and a lot of people are slating him for it. But I assume you'd be with me on the opinion that it's actually quite smart man management, isn't it? You take the focus away from your players. You just lost to Southampton 1-0. It's a disappointing result. You take the focus away from them by blaming something completely irrelevant to the game. Now, it's a bit weird to look at from an outsider point of view, but do you agree that it's good man management?
No, I know what you're saying. I mean, I can see how it might seem a bit of a stretch, but it's what you'd see Fergie do. At least, I'm sure Klopp considers it like to some extent, where he's thinking, if I blame it like on the length of grass or the wind or something, realistically, like you say, them pages like ESPN that you mentioned and stuff, Henry, and Goal, they eat all that up and they love it. And everyone then, instead of, it still comes with it. Obviously, you'll see a lot of criticism for Salah or whoever, but the criticism goes on Klopp, and I think he likes taking it away from the players, because, yeah, it might sound a bit of a stretch, but I'm on board with you there, James.
Yeah, it's definitely notable. But we'll come back to the media coverage then. Obviously, there's quite a bit of a debate between United fans and, between every sort of fan and Liverpool fans about the fact that the Van Dijk injury is still getting coverage and stuff like this. So do you think there's any sort of media spin towards one of the two teams?
Oh no, that has been getting on. I see that all the time. Is people talking about Van Dijk or comparing it to Jimenez, which is just is weird, doesn't make sense. And then you see these people daily, and then the engagement on the tweets of bringing up the Van Dijk injury, it sort of explains it for yourself why the media are banging on about the Van Dijk injury because it's what gets more engagements, and that's all they really care about.
James, you muted, mate.
Sorry, there we go. There's a thing going around at the minute, isn't there, about, I believe it's Mark Clattenburg, his quotes have come out about saying, you know, that United were slightly favoured by referees. Now, Henry, what do you sort of make of that?
It's funny, isn't it? Funny. Imagine, okay, right, I'll put this in the plainest way possible. Imagine a manager that kind of scares you so much as like Ferguson or someone like that you feel you have to be biased. I know it's terrible, and I'm, you know, they sort of clamped down on it, but I've likened Klopp to Fergie at times because of the anger on the touchline. You know, he'll run down the touchline screaming at the linesman, and you know, you'd see Ferguson, he'd spit his chewing gum out, like shouting at a linesman or a referee or fourth official or something. So of course it's going to have a sway because they don't want to deal with you if you're aggressive. So I can understand that. And there was something about us winning the FA Cup, I think, where they said, oh, you know, you only won the FA Cup because the referees had kind of been swayed. But I think Chris Smalling got sent off in that one that someone mentioned. So that was kind of made irrelevant by that. But yeah, I mean, when you got people that are frightening on the touchline, referees, they don't want to deal with them unless you're Mike Dean, which he just loves it for some reason. He'll just party with them. He'll, you know, have a good time. But yeah, it has a sway, and it's still going on now. But you know, it's always United that get talked about for some reason.
Yeah, well, on that sort of line of questioning then, Tommy, obviously there's a big thing about United and VAR at the minute. So do you, from a Liverpool standpoint, do you still think there's a bit of a bias towards United from referees?
It's a bit, obviously there's a joke and whatnot, and there's something in the fact, obviously United get more penalties, but in fairness, you usually more or less do win them often. I wouldn't say as much a bias to anyone. I just think that nearly all English officials are awful, and you see it in any game of football you watch in England. There's some awful controversy that something that the referee, even though he's now got a screen, he can go and sort of correct his decision. It's always wrong, and I do think in the Fergie days there was definitely, Clattenburg was right. There was definitely some bias, and this season I don't think there's any sort of conspiracy or anything. But I've seen Liverpool robbed a lot this year, and United had more favourable decisions, but I think I saw a stat like Leicester have had twice as many penalties as you, or 10. I don't know.
Yeah,
there's no conspiracy for Leicester to win the league.
Yeah, well, obviously the Van Dijk and the Sadio Mane incident in the same game sort of springs to mind in terms of Liverpool being unfortunate. But you know, I wanted to dive into the teams themselves then, since we are previewing the game now. Big thing in recent weeks with Liverpool that I'm hoping you can shed some light on, Tommy, is they just can't seem to score. And, you know, they're scoring one goal a game. If not, they're firing blanks. So, you know, what do you think it's down to? Is it just a bit of tired legs, or is the cohesion from the front three gone, or what do you think it is?
There's a lot of factors contributing to it. So one, obviously, which has been pointed out a bit, which sort of will have gone under the radar with maybe you and United fans, is missing Van Dijk and Gomez takes a lot away from sort of the way we build from the back and the way we play out. So then that has an effect on sort of creating chances and whatnot. Naby Keita, who's injured, you know, again, as has sort of been a problem constantly. Like he's one of our best chance creators. Sort of the numbers when he plays compared to without, like there's no coincidence there. It's because of his creative threat. And then obviously his sort of absence, it comes quite apparent when you're playing like a low block and stuff like that. Trent obviously is our key creator. All the assists usually get accredited to him, and when he's in the form that he's in, and he's sort of your key contributor to chances, you're not going to get a lot. And obviously, like you say, just a lot of sort of little things here and there. Players not sort of playing at their individual sort of peaks they can hit, really quite a lot.
Yeah. Well, I don't know if you share the opinion that I do, Henry, but you know, going into this game, Liverpool have scored 1 goal in 3 games, I believe, picked up 2 points, and yet I'm still very worried of what they can do on the attack. Are you of a similar opinion? And if so, then why do you think that is?
Well, everyone knows that as soon as a derby day comes along, it doesn't matter how bad your team is, you know, form-wise or or what they're doing, because things can turn really quickly. One team can have confidence 1 minute, and then the next make a slight mistake, and it's all over. So yeah, especially with derby days, it's difficult, and I know it's just a weird situation to be in as a United fan, because you think, oh, 3 points clear at the top. I'd say the pressure's more on Liverpool, surprisingly, because your home record and the way that you've played over the last couple of years at home, especially.
I think we need it more than you, don't we? Really?
Yeah, but in terms of the odds are in your favour as well, even though we've got so many injuries, because we can do one amazing thing 1 minute and then just look awful the next. So, we're very Jekyll and Hyde in that sense.
Haven't been a strong point this year, have they?
It's just there's something, I don't know what it is, and I know people are so happy with United and stuff, especially United fans. Other teams are starting to accept that we've got a good side, but there's still something that makes me nervous about every single game that we play, and I'm not sure quite what it is yet. There's little mistakes that happen in games, even in the Burnley game, little mistakes. I think if that happens against the top side like Liverpool, we're in big trouble. So we can beat as many bum teams as we want. It doesn't mean you're the best team in the league. So, it all goes out the window. And that's why we're more nervous than Liverpool fans.
No,
yeah, it's a weird one, isn't it?
Yeah, I get that.
It's a weird one, isn't it? Because United fans go into the game more nervous when realistically a draw is a much better result for us than it is for Liverpool, isn't it? Because that still leaves us 3 points ahead. It's a strange one, isn't it? That's the effect of Anfield. But moving towards the back line, then we mentioned the absence of Van Dijk and Gomez. Matip is a bit touch and go. He'll probably be back, but he might not be 100%. Now, how much of these defensive issues, how many problems are these causing you, should I say? Obviously, you've got the obvious fact of that, you're not top of the league when you'd expect to be. There's one big issue for you, but, just how deep-rooted are the problems without those key defenders, do you think?
Yeah, it's like the creating chances thing. It affects so many different thingies. Like something I was talking about the other day was the fact now Fabinho has had to go in centre back and he looks quality there, but then you've lost arguably the best defensive midfielder in the league in midfield. So you have them kind of effects. Having same with Henderson. If Henderson drops in centre back, you lose his midfield presence. And then if you're not doing that and you've only got Fabinho, you've got to play Reece Williams or Nat Phillips, who obviously are not Premier League standard footballers by any stretch, especially Reece Williams. And that's not sort of his own fault. He's like a 19, 20-year-old lad that's been he's just in this position. He's not meant to be at that. So obviously you can't criticise him too heavily, but that is the problem that you're faced with, having someone that level have to step in.
Yeah, it's difficult, isn't it? The absence of Van Dijk is being very clearly noted, isn't it? Because it's been a massive drop off in points from the last 2 years, hasn't it? And that's obviously comes with the territory with losing your best defender. But I think it's pretty common knowledge that he's the best defender in the world now, isn't he? But I'll come to you first, Henry. Where do you think he ranks in terms of all-time Premier League greats? I think your opinion and Tommy's opinion will be very different.
Oh God, this whole argument, man, it absolutely does my head in. I think he's a great player. Don't get me wrong. I think he's a fantastic player, but I think longevity decides how good you've been in a Premier League era. So if you're there for 2 or 3 seasons, and I think Van Dijk's 30, 29, 30 now, something like that. Mm-hmm. So I know he's still got a few years probably left in him, but he's quite. He's come into the limelight quite late for a centre half. They're usually especially now, usually 23, 24. That was when he was at Celtic and when he was at Groningen over in the Netherlands. So, he's come in quite late. So I can't rank him really high, as the John Terrys of and the Rio Ferdinands. I can't put him up there simply because of that. I think he's top 10, probably. I mean, definitely, actually, I'd say. But I don't think he's, at the moment, best defender in the world. Fair enough. I can't argue with that. But then we said the same about Phil Jones at one stage in 2011, 2012. We were like, oh my God, this guy's amazing. And he's just
absolutely nobody said that, Henry. Please.
No.
Don't ever say that again.
Alex Ferguson said that guy would be the next Rio Ferdinand. He said it in the media that he'd be the next Rio Ferdinand. So, and if you think I'm a bad judge of character, okay. So Alex Ferguson, the best manager there's ever been.
David Moyes, didn't he, to be a manager after? He's not.
But he was, when he was in form, fantastic, and he's dropped off and been shit ever since. So I can't. Longevity decides for me. John Terry for me is the best there's ever been.
I mean, that's probably the maddest comparison you could have gone with. So that aside, I think I take your argument about longevity because I think there's that sort of a factor that's got to be considered. But for me, and personally, all I really care about is I don't think any of you can sit there and tell me with like a straight face you've watched a defender as good as Van Dijk or that can do the stuff Van Dijk does. And sort of in terms of peak ability, I've never seen any. I think he's comfortably the best. Like by a, I think he.
I'll agree with Tommy there. I think if we're talking straight ability, Van Dijk's the best we've ever seen. He's the best we will see for a very, very long time. He's complete, isn't he? He's tall, quick, strong, can pass a ball. His defensive awareness is second to none. I think
a lot of people are arguing the same with Maldini and Cannavaro and players like that, but we didn't watch them because we were a lot younger. So
we're talking Premier League, right?
No, but I'm just saying in terms of the best in the world, I'm talking the best there's ever been. I can't, Premier League.
We'll leave them out of it. I'll come for sort of that later on in Virgil's career, but right now I think.
I'd say okay. In 3 years' time, come back to me with the same argument, and I will be able to definitively tell you whether he'll be up there. Because if he's won one or two more Premier Leagues in the next 3 or 4 years, fine. You can put him up there. But it depends. Players' careers can change within seconds.
When you say something like that, you could look at it and say 1 or 2 more Premier Leagues. And if we were to win the league this year and Van Dijk's had his 5 appearances and gets his medal, people are going to look back in however many times and add this title to his thingy, and you'll have that debate where people get nostalgic about him in years' time and they're saying, oh, but he won this many Premier Leagues, including this. And it's like John Terry won that one Champions League, but he didn't actually feature in the final or anything. So I think when you get too trophy-based, it takes away from sort of what the argument should be.
Well, but, again, it's dependent on it's dependent on the next 3 or 4 years to me, because when I think a defender stays in his prime till he's about 32, 33 for me, maybe even longer depending on what he bases his game off. Because I think Terry was playing till he's 36 or something.
Not great.
So
he fell off around 30.
I reckon about 32. We were thinking, not as good, a bit slow, but he, still an imposing figure in the Premier League. So, again, come back to me in 2 or 3 years' time, and I'll be able to tell you, yes, he's a Premier League great, up with the top 3 or 4, maybe even best.
No matter what, to be honest, I think that's there as it is. Whether or not you want to rank him as number 1, but he's in that top.
He's top 5, definitely.
I think Terry's the only one I really listen to the debate on, but I would be like that.
Yeah, no.
Yeah, I'm going to go ability-wise. He's the best there's ever been Premier League-wise, and especially we talk about the impact Bruno's transfer had and how much he's boosted United, but Van Dijk literally took Liverpool from it must have been like 5th, 6th in the league in January. He took you to a Champions League final. You were very unlucky to lose it in the end, obviously with Salah going off at half time. And then, the next season you win the Champions League. The season after that, you win the league. Now, I get Jurgen Klopp's a brilliant manager, but I think Van Dijk had as much to do with those titles as Jurgen Klopp did, didn't he? So I think, we're talking impact on a team and ability. I think Van Dijk's probably the best there's ever been.
Hang on a minute. I know completely different positions, but Bruno's just taken us from a side that was 6th or 7th in the league, looking like we were nowhere near top 4, and we're now top. And that is literally because of him. So
we are top, but we haven't won a league yet, have we? We've also crashed out of the Champions League.
But he's taken a side that was bang average. Like literally, I would say we were level with West Ham before he came into the side.
He has had a huge impact on you, but to make that Van Dijk comparison, I want to see him take it sort of one more step further. But you can see,
you can see the comparisons starting to come together in terms of impact.
I think it's a reasonable comparison if you want to strictly talk the impact they had on just changing the team completely, because he's sort of changed the mentality you've had there. I mean, still can't get past the semi-finals or anything yet, but once you can tell there's more there. Your consistency sort of in your performance is clearly as a result of.
I think we've lost 2 Premier League games in the last year. I think the rest have been
It was 3 this season.
3 this. No, I think it was some sort of stat. Maybe it was at home or I don't know, some sort of stat. So I know we've lost the Spurs and the Palace games and the Arsenal game, but other than that, I don't know. When he joined, did we lose?
No, we didn't lose in that thing, but it's fair to say they've probably both been the best, but 2 of the best signings in the Premier League era. But I just wanted to move things on a bit. Then, obviously, looking at the teams, obviously Van Dijk's injured, and you've got a lot of injuries, Tommy. So we just wanted to know sort of what the Liverpool team news was, and then what you think your predicted 11 would be.
I've seen Tsimikas and Matip back in training. So obviously, Tsimikas might be on the bench, and he's surely going to start Matip. So Naby Keita's still injured, but apparently he's not too far from coming back. So that could be one for the FA Cup game. Other than that, nothing. No sort of real changes as to what you would expect. So it'd just be Alisson, Trent, Matip, Fabinho, Robertson, and then I think it's nailed on Thiago, Hendo, Gini, then the front 3 as ever.
It's Thiago's home debut, isn't it?
Yeah, I know. It's bloody 2021. It feels weird. Yeah.
Taking him a while, hasn't it? Well, I think it's impossible to predict the United 11, isn't it, Emery? And we'll obviously see a lot of those coming through. But talking of 11s, we were thinking before the show it'd be interesting to spark a bit of a debate. So we just want to know right now what everyone's sort of combined 11 would be. Obviously, there's a few.
10 of
it's pretty. Yeah, I mean, I thought that might be what you say, but we'll go through it position by position and sort of argue with it. Obviously, there's no comparison between Alisson and De Gea. I think Trent takes it over Wan-Bissaka, even in this poor form he's in.
Form-wise, I think Trent. Correct me if I'm wrong. I think I saw a stat where he was the player that lost the ball the most times in any Premier League game this year. He lost it 30 times.
That was a game, but that's also a bit of a misleading stat because although Trent was awful that game, usually that stat, like Bruno will be a player in the game that gives the ball away the most because he's sort of your key chance creator. So you're going to expect.
This is the first time I think I've ever seen Liverpool fans say that he's had an absolute stinker so far in last 5 games. He's been poor.
I absolutely love Trent, and because of what he's done over the last sort of 2 years, that he's proven what he's had ability wise. You can tell he's the best best right back in the world. But this season, he's not even been top 5 in the league. Like he's so behind his level, which is, I mean, if we're going to improve, obviously, it needs Trent to go back to his sort of capable performance. Like the important thing is that he's capable of it. But
if you had a combination of his attacking ability and Wan-Bissaka's defensive ability, that would be the best fullback ever. Like genuinely, because Wan-Bissaka defensively. Sometimes positioning's a bit off, but his tackling is ridiculous.
Yeah,
I don't get it. I just don't get it how he can do it.
All I'm saying is I've had to watch Wan-Bissaka so far this season, and with that in mind,
Trent is definitely
Trent.
Yeah.
But centre backs. If we're going off players available, I think this is quite an interesting conversation. So you'll obviously have Matip and Fabinho if you want to class him as a centre back available, and we'll have Maguire and Eric Bailly. So it'd be interesting to see what you two think. Sort of who makes it out of those.
I'm going to just chuck out straight away and say, for me, I mean, bias, I'm going to be Liverpool. I'm going to go Fabinho, Matip. But to be reasonable, I'd say Fabinho and Bailly would be... Well, I mean, you tell me about Maguire, because I know he's your captain. But I just
Maguire has been one of our best players this year, and I hate to say that because I'm most critical of him. But he was insane against Burnley, especially because... defending crosses for some reason, he seems to be really good, and I don't know what it is, but he's been good for us this year. But Bailly at the moment, form-wise, just looks unreal.
Yeah.
So, the thought of having Maguire next to a Matip or a Fabinho, though, is horrifying. Not very quick players. So we'll go with Fabinho and Bailly then.
Yeah.
Nice of you to give us one. Obviously, Robertson's going left back because
Bailly over Matip. I don't even know. I think I might contest that.
Matip's incredibly underrated. I think he's an incredible defender.
But to be fair, in terms of form and stuff, has Matip been injured the last?
The problem with Matip is the same as Bailly. That he's unbelievable every time he plays, but he's just got the worst availability I've ever seen. He carried Van Dijk to a Champions League final. He's had clean sheets against Lewandowski. He got an assist in the Champions League final. Bailly's not sort of got the CV in terms of big game performances that Matip has to back him up, I'd argue.
Well, why don't we put Bailly and Matip centre back and push Fabinho into the holding midfielder role?
I like that idea. Yeah, that's what we should definitely. Yeah.
Okay, fair. Yeah, fair. But who are you going to
then?
Midfield is going to be a tough one because I know who I want in there straight away.
Yeah.
I think
I'm interested.
Obviously Robertson left back, and then my midfield would be Fabinho, Henderson, Bruno.
Not Pogba.
I think I've just not seen enough of Thiago in the Premier League yet to give that judgment. I want to have him in as much as anyone else, but
that opinion will have changed after the game.
It probably will, yeah. But I've seen the impact that Henderson's had on that team when he's not been in, and you've looked horrendous in the midfield. So I think just for his leadership and everything like that, I don't think you can leave out Jordan Henderson.
Yeah, I mean, I'd be having. Oh, I guess I've just clocked. We've got Fabinho in there, so I'm gonna go then instead of because my midfield three would have been Fabinho, Henderson, Thiago, Bruno, and now I can't quite decide between who would miss out there.
See, I personally I can't leave Pogba out, and we talk about big game players. This guy scored two. I think he scored 1 or 2 goals in a World Cup final. And to be fair, the last few games, this is a reinvigorated Pogba that I've never seen before. I watched him against Burnley. He had 3 players surrounding him, and he threw them all off him. It was like, no, off you go. So, he looks a different animal at the moment, and he looks happier as well. And we all know what he can do. I remember last year, so there was one player, Jamie Carragher and Neville did a combined 11, and Carragher put Pogba in there, regardless of his, poor performances, whatever, because he said he can just do it. He can just turn it on.
That's an excuse only for so long, If he can just do it and he's leaving in the summer having not really done it, it's not enough for me.
But I think
that's what I'm thinking as well. I think Pogba's inconsistency hands it over to Henderson because Henderson hasn't had a bad game in 3 or 4 years now.
I mean, he's had bad games. He's had some bad games recently, but
Henderson called the crab.
On the scale wise, I just think Henderson has proved himself a lot more the last 18 months than Pogba has.
I'll give him he's a leader, but like I'd say if he has like 200 passes that are accurate, 194 of them will be sideways or backwards.
Early on not even necessarily early on, he was leading the stat some point in the season of most successive forward passes. So I think that's he plays a lot of forward ball for Henderson nowadays. Well,
just on pure popularity alone, then you're 2-1, Henry. So I think we're going to go Fabinho, Henderson, and Bruno.
Thiago would be in there if Henderson if we've got Fabinho and Thingy out. For me, I'm going Thiago, but I think we're 3-way split then.
You know what? Thiago's looked uncomfortable for me. He looked uncomfortable, so he got caught a couple of times against Southampton. I watched the game, and he looked so. There's times when you can see players, top players like that. You think, wow, they're just going to adapt straight away. He looked a bit unsettled against Southampton when he was pressed. It was like, oh my god, I'm not used to this because no one presses Bayern Munich. I mean, they are this year, but no one ever has. So,
quite a few teams in the Bundesliga that will have done that, and in the Champions League. I think the thing against Southampton, what I didn't like about him was he was in like the 6 on his own, and when Pep was at Bayern, he played in there, and he didn't get the best out of him. I think he's much better in like a 2 or a pivot. I think for the midfield combined 11, it's Thiago and Bruno are nailed on. Then you debate over whoever you want as the third.
That's it. Yeah, fair.
Yeah. Well, it's a difficult one then, isn't it? It's a difficult one. We'll leave the midfield up in the air because we're not ever going to get on a decision, are we? Really? But front 3, then this will be interesting to hear you two debate this. Obviously, I know Tommy's going to go full Liverpool front 3, but Henry, what are your thoughts on it?
Fabinho's a bum, man. I'm not putting him in there. I'm not putting him in there.
Midfielder, so
but he works well for your team. But I would say that in a generic team where you have, I'd say Rashford would go through the middle.
Do you mean Yeah, did you mean Firmino? Because you said Fabinho.
Oh, I meant Firmino. Yeah, sorry.
Do you know what? I think the two wingers is not up for debate, but as he's my favourite player, so I'm gonna be biased and put Firmino in. But Rashford's not that good as a lone striker, or wasn't last time I watched him there. He's on the left wing, and overall, I'll admit Rashford's a better player and sort of more well-rounded than Firmino. But if it's just in that 9 role and he's playing with Mane and Salah, I'm just going to stick Firmino in there.
He's been, I'd say, Rashford has been, in terms of performances, has been really poor, but his goals and assists have been really good. And so when he's not on it, I think he's got something like, I don't know whether it's 19 goals and assists combined this year or something ridiculous in all competitions. But when a player is, put in those stats when he's not in good form, people are saying he's not in good form, then what he can do when he is in good form, who knows? I think, I'd definitely have him in there. And the only player you can put him in over would be Firmino, not over Salah or Mane. So
it's fair. It's understandable. It's just in that 9, I'm not sure.
I just think, as Firmino, I do think he is underrated. His stats wouldn't suggest that he's a good player, but the impact he has on that team, again, is incredible. You look, you could, when Jota's come in and replaced either Salah or Mane, he's done a good job. When he's come in and replaced Firmino, he's not really had that same effect, has he? I don't know how accurate that is, Tommy, but from the eye test, Firmino's the least replaceable one there. But I do think the gap between Mane and Rashford isn't quite as big as we're making out. I think statistically, Rashford's actually had a better 2020 than Mane. Obviously, Mane's got all the trophies and all the awards, and he's very clearly one of the best players in the world. But I think Rashford goes a bit unnoticed in that sort of category. He's, along with Bruno, he's dragged United to the top of the league. Really, he's not had much help from anyone else. Anthony Martial's had an absolute stinker of a season. And, Mason Greenwood and Dan James down that right have done nothing. You've had Bruno creating chances. Pogba's been very hit and miss, and the defence has been shaky. So if it wasn't Rashford, obviously Bruno can't do everything on its own. So I think I'd definitely have Mane in there, but I would also make a strong case for Rashford to be a bit closer in terms of recognition.
Maybe that's a bit closer in recognition might be fair, but you mentioned the eye test and Henry mentioned, so at the end of the day, the goal contributions are what sort of get you the points and what win you the games. But the difference for me is, like you say there, Rashford playing poorly and then he steals a contribution and it does well. Whereas Mane, sort of probably about a month ago, was going through one of his sort of worst spells I've seen Mane go through. He wasn't contributing, but he was still putting up relatively decent performances, and he can impact the game a lot because of how good he is and sort of how direct he is without getting a sort of a goal or an assist. And I just think that's sort of I feel like he can just offer more and he's more complete. But I can see the comparison. I know Klopp loves Rashford, and I think for me I'd go Mane, Son, then probably Rashford up next, just behind him.
I say give it a year, and the gap will start to close a little bit more. I think because
Rashford develops even more. I'm sure.
I mean, ever since Bruno's come in, he's had support and he's had a supply of forward passes, and he looks. I wouldn't say he looks. At the start he looked a different player. Everyone looked like a different player when Bruno came in. Even Dan James looked like half decent. So, but it just goes to show, he's getting goal involvements pretty much every game, and Bruno was shocking against Burnley. Was awful. Kept losing the ball, and yet another goal involvement. So, I think he's got the same amount of Player of the Months as Dennis Bergkamp had in his career at Arsenal.
These are just great Player of the Month awards.
Well, you say that, but I don't think, so Liverpool playing relatively poorly at the moment. The only team that are playing well and consistently doing it, I guess, the last couple of months has been United. And it's
on quite a. They've actually, I don't think they've lost in like 22 games. They've kind of gone under the radar of City.
Yeah, City are doing well. I mean, against Brighton, I watched that game and they looked really.
Yeah, they're not old, but no one's at their best at all. So it's a bit of a.
They look so uncomfortable. I've never seen a City side look so uncomfortable against like 16th place Brighton, and they could have shipped 1 or 2 goals if Morpay would have any legs to shoot with because he's useless. But yeah, I mean, it's
That's the thing, isn't it? City playing poorly and still getting results. You know, they win their 2 games in hand. They go above Liverpool. They're 1 point behind us. So you know, they're still bringing in the goods, aren't they? But you know, we're pretty. Yeah. Well, I think we decided on that front three. Then I can't disagree with a full Liverpool front line really. So I think you're outnumbered 2-1 there, Henry. So I think Rashford just misses out. But you know, I wanted to just before we end, I wanted to take it over to Twitter because you know that's where Tommy's probably most prominent. You become in a very good way a professional wind-up merchant, in my opinion. You do have some pretty hilarious tweets going out, but you're a pretty big part of a new account that's got a lot of traction in terrible football takes. I believe you're pretty heavily involved with that, aren't you? Now, just firstly wanted to know sort of where the idea for that came from, really.
I literally, I just, you see if I tweet about something and I'll see someone, I don't know, like the sort of thing we do on this podcast talking about who's a better footballer than who. And I've seen a lot of stuff up recently or like last sort of year, and I'm like, that's just awful. And it's sort of usually a common opinion, and I'm like, it'll get proved wrong. And then just because I've bookmarked stuff like that, because it's probably a bit sad, but doing that and seeing that sort of it's a thing people find funny and going back to look at thingy, I just thought I may as well mainly because I'm just sick of tweeting it myself. I thought I may as well just tweet it on an actual account where it's more neutral and it wouldn't just be Liverpool.
Yeah, fair enough. Well, you know, we see a lot of terrible football takes on Twitter, but we want to know, as someone who's become a bit of a connoisseur, is there any specific person that produces loads of bad football takes? And you know, if not, you know,
in that Twitter world, there's one for every one of the big clubs. You know, you've got that United tray, and then the one at CFC Raf. Not a fan of him.
Yeah, sometimes. No,
I try to stay clear of it as much as that as possible, but it just does filter through onto my timeline a lot. So I see it, but I'm like, I'll be stupid enough to engage it when I shouldn't. But yeah, I think it's all kind of just that baity community, and then I like rising to it to an extent. And I mean, I'm sure I'm sort of more known for it than most people we know on our course and stuff for being a dickhead about football. Sorry if that's well now. But when it's just like a complete sort of opinion that's just a mile off, and they're doing it purely for interactions and stuff, that gets on my nerves a bit.
Well, is there any football take in your mind that you've seen that's really stuck out in your head as, you know, the worst football take you've ever seen? Well, we'll filter it down to people you think are genuinely being serious, not just people who are putting bait out there, people who genuinely believe what they're saying.
I'm just trying to think, because on the account we do a thing where we do it was like the worst one of the month. So I'm just trying. I reckon someone did. I can't think. Someone said something ridiculous like they'd much rather have like less goals but all nice goals than just a sheer quantity of goals.
Oh, right, yeah. They'd have like 10 wonder goals rather than 25 tappings.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure I saw one on the account that was like, someone said, like, bookmark this in a year, like Bruno Fernandes will be a flop.
Yeah, there's a lot of Bruno ones, to be fair. Bruno's proved a lot of people wrong.
How the fuck? Like, that's the stupidest thing you can do. Because there's a 50-50 chance it's going to go tits up, and when you do, you'll be famous for being a retard. Like, I don't know if there's anything worse. I'd rather have happened to me, but there you go.
Well, staying with Twitter then, obviously you have established yourself as a bit of a presence within Twitter, especially among Liverpool fans. You're someone that comes up very often. So, you know, what's it like being a big part of football Twitter? You know, you tweet out these things. A lot of people, you know, respond to them. You're sort of out in the open for abuse. You know, do you get much of a reaction? And if so, sort of what's it like?
I wouldn't really say it is. To be honest, I literally just tweet a few like sort of what I think about Liverpool. I am quite in a Liverpool bubble. Obviously, you see people that talk about thingy, but because like my favorite thing I'll ever do is just talk about football. Just that's just sort of how I enjoy doing. I wouldn't say there's any sort of it's any different. It's probably only to you it comes up a lot because like we follow each other and we talk. Me and you have the same interests of Liverpool, Man United, Premier League, sort of just, you know, how it is. But I want.
Yeah, well, fair enough. Well, before we end, then I just wanted to talk about one more thing. Obviously, I believe I'm right in saying a couple of months ago you might still well be by all means, but you were involved in the LFC Transfer Room podcast. I'm sure. Now that was one.
Yeah. We were actually going to bring that back onto some YouTube format in the sort of when I go back up to uni actually.
Yeah, well, it was something that I definitely watched, even as a not a United fan, just to get sort of pointers about this podcast. But you've had a lot of real quality guests on there, haven't you? But has there been any sort of guests that stood out in your mind as such, and that you've really learned a lot about from?
Not as much necessarily learnt about, but I enjoyed the one with bloody hell of Jan Fjortov. I don't know if you know who that is.
Yeah.
Just because he's like Klopp, he's just like a really funny bloke. So he's just just him. He's a good laugh.
Well, fair enough. We'll keep an eye out for the return then. But just last thing we do before we end, obviously we get everyone's score predictions. Henry, you're not ducking out of this one.
I am ducking out of this one, mate. I'm not predicting shit because whenever I predict it goes wrong, and I'm not doing it.
Predict a Liverpool win then.
I to be honest, and this is one of the ones where I turn around and say, well, it is it could go either way. But with Liverpool being so poor and United being so good, it's going to flip upside down, and something bad is going to happen in the game. It's so on the cards to happen. Someone's going to slip over, or De Gea's going to let one through his legs, or some crap like that, and I think this game is going to be won not through brilliance, through mistakes. That's what I personally see at the moment, because both sides for me have got a mistake and a half in them. So, it could end up 5-4 or 0-0. I don't know.
Well, I'll come to you then, Tommy. Have you got an actual answer, or you're going to be a bit brave?
I won Liverpool, but Henry is right in the sense that we've hyped this up and all that, but as ever, the game itself is usually quite shit. Like the quality, if there's nerves and whatnot, and this is probably unless I'm missing maybe other than Europa League games, this is probably the biggest Liverpool United game in the last sort of decade. And with all that pressure on it, it might just be a bit of a cagey game, and no one wants to make any mistakes, kind of thing. I mean, I don't know honestly if we I can see us winning comfortably because I should back that, but. Yeah, probably. I don't know. It's so hard to predict. I'm doing the same with Henry now. I'm just going to stick with 2-1 Liverpool. Just going to stick with that.
Fair enough. Well, I'm going to flip your result then. I'm going to go 2-1 United. I think we're going to score with both our shots on target. That we'll have 15% possession, just absolute shithouse a win. But
I swear to God, if Ole Gunnar Solskjaer plays 7 defensive players, I will be furious. I can't deal with it again, because we did it against Leipzig and we got absolutely shit up by a team that were, I mean, to be fair, you guys have got them soon, so I can't wait to see that happen, because that one could be an interesting one. That'll be a tactical battle and a half. That
football against us, we usually do quite well. Like your sort of have proved yourself as a strong counter-attacking threat, which is up there with a lot of the sort of quality teams around the world, and we've not faced a lot like it. So if your players at their best, it could. Like when you saw Rashford get that hat-trick against Leipzig, that kind of quality, if we weren't to play Matip, could really hurt us. With Matip playing, I think we should survive it. But, and with the sort of compared to Rashford, you never know.
I just think, one thing I will say is I just think United just have to go for Liverpool this game. And I've never said that in the last 5-6 years. I've always been nervous. The one with the poor form, especially that left-hand side, I would stick a channel of Pogba, Bruno, Rashford. I'd stick them all on him, just because when someone's in poor form and they make an early mistake, like the Southampton game, and then he got hooked after 70, 80 minutes, Trent. So when a player makes a mistake early on, it's jittery, it's nerves. So I just want to see us attack, and if we lose 5-4, so be it. And but I'd be happy with that, rather than losing 1-0 or something. I want to see us attack.
Yeah. I hope so.
What did you say?
Just hoping for not a 0-0. Anything but a 0-0, and I'll be happy.
Yeah, fair.
Unless we lose, obviously, that'll be a bit shit. But I think that's about it, unless anyone's got anything else to add.
No.
No, that's all good here.
Well, Tommy, massive thank you for joining us. If you haven't already, for whatever reason, then check Tommy out on Twitter. He's quite funny for a Liverpool fan. I'll give him that. But yeah, massive thanks for coming on, and good luck for Sunday. I've said through gritted teeth. Really don't mean it. But...
I'm not even going to wish you good luck. I'll see you after the game.
Yeah. Fair enough.
Enjoy it in some aspect, though, lads.
Yeah. Go on. Sorry.
Oh, you're just signing off.
Yeah. Well, Henry, thanks again for joining me and helping me out. But if you haven't already, be sure to like and subscribe, and we'll see you midweek for another episode.
Manchester United are the champions of Europe again.